back into that Sean podcast. Is I, the Big Ush. Is he, the Cat Daddy. Join us as we conclude our draft review series. Yes, I fumbled. My bad. Can't get through it without fumbling. Cat Daddy, what's on your mind?
Fumble-rooski. The AFC West made some. Yeah. AFC West made some pretty explosive moves during the offseason to create what I believe is the best division in football, and I think they carried some of that momentum into the draft. So I think this is actually going to be a really good episode.
If not the best, it's going to be the most competitive.
Yeah.
But without further ado, let's get into this. Starting out with Kansas City. All right. Starting with their first pick at pick 21 in the first round, they select Trent McDuffie, cornerback out of Washington.
They traded up for this one, too.
Right. Following up that pick, they went and got George Karlaftis, edge out of Purdue at pick 30. You like my Karlaftis voice?
I do.
Then in the second round, they go and get pick 54, Sky Moore, wide receiver, Western Michigan. Then at 62, they get Brian Cook, safety out of Cincinnati. In the third round, they get a Cat Daddy special in Leo Chenal, linebacker out of Wisconsin. The fourth round, they get Joshua Williams, cornerback out of Lafayetteville State. Then in the fifth round, they get Darian Kennard, offensive guard out of Kentucky. And then jump to the seventh round, they get Jalen Watson, cornerback out of Washington State. Then Isaiah Pacheco, running back out of Rutgers. And then Najee Johnson Najee, whichever you pronounce it, Johnson, cornerback out of Marshall. How you feel about this draft?
Even after trading Tyreek Hill earlier in the offseason, you're thinking Kansas City came into this draft with two big needs. You had cornerback and you had edge, and they addressed both their first two picks, and that's because the top wide receiver talents were already off the board, so they traded up for Trent McDuffie. And when they traded up for McDuffie, I thought they were trading up for another player. I thought they were trading up for someone like Jermaine Johnson, who was still on the board at that point. So for me, a question at looking back on this draft over the next few years is going to be, which is or would have been the better duo? Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis, who they actually drafted. Or would it have looked better with Jermaine Johnson at 21 and then taking Andrew Booth Jr. instead at number 30?
It is a question. Who shoulda, woulda, coulda?
I know. Personally, I would have liked the Johnson-Booth combination, but that's me. And it doesn't mean that Kansas City picked wrong, because they still acquired two really good talents in the first round. The Chiefs were able to address the wide receiver need in the second rounds by selecting Sky Moore, and the pick is made better when you think and you remember that they traded back and they were able to select Sky Moore, so they're getting better value out of that. And then they just started filling out the roster with upside players. Kansas City came into a plan. They walked away with 5 selections dedicated to the secondary, and you had Brian Cook safety, you had Josh Williams cornerback, Jalen Watson cornerback, Najee Johnson safety. So they got some stud players who can contribute right away, and then they filled the roster. I liked it. I really liked it. It was one of my favorite classes this year.
That Leo Chenal pick is very nice, very timely pick there. Go along with Nick Bolton, who's already on the roster.
There's a reason I didn't mention him yet.
That Darian Kennard pick is just sitting right there, real nice and real pretty, regardless if you think there's an injury concern or not. It's a nice little depth fill and possible future pick. All right, moving on. I already know where you're going. Favorite pick, go ahead.
Leo Chanel, 3rd round. I think it was a great spot for him. Great spot for him to be drafted. And not just because it's the selection, the pick number, but also because that destination. He is going to give great value to that Chiefs defense at the end of the 3rd round. And I think it's going to be a great situation for him, too, being able to play next to Nick Bolton. That's going to be a nice combination.
My favorite pick is Darren Kennard. Really like the value, really like the player. I think this could be some really nice diamond in the rough where they found here.
Assuming that he can get past any character concerns,
right?
Then I think that could be one of the biggest
they care about
deals.
Character concerns in Kansas.
I know, yeah. Kansas City doesn't, so there was no surprise that he ended up there.
All right, least favorite pick.
I have to preface this by saying, while I don't think the Chiefs made any bad picks, I have Brian Cook in the 2nd round as my least favorite pick, just because I don't like the value of where he's selected. Probably could have lasted toward the end of the 3rd round. They maybe could have traded down to select him like they did with Sky Moore. But in their defense, as I've mentioned plenty of times before, we saw safeties coming off the board a lot quicker than in previous years. So without Tyrann Mathieu, without Daniel Sorensen, I'm not surprised that they selected Brian Cook when they did.
Mine is Joshua Williams. I just think there were better corners on the board at the time. Nothing against the player. I just like there's other players I liked on the board at the time. That's all. All right, moving on to the next draft. And we're going to go with the Denver Broncos. And the Denver Broncos select, or they did not have a 1st round pick. Tell them why they didn't have a 1st round pick.
Because they have a new quarterback in town by the name of Russell Wilson.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Actually, I did. So, with that said, in the 2nd round, with the 64th pick, they picked Nick Benito, edge out of Oklahoma. Then in the 3rd round, they go Greg Dulcich, tight end out of UCLA. Then in the 4th round, they go Damari Mathis, cornerback out of Pittsburgh. Then in the pick right after it, they get this defensive tackle out of Iowa. I'm not even trying. Okay? It will not happen. You can try.
Nope. Moving on.
All right. Then in the 5th round, they take DeLauren Turner-Yell, safety out of Oklahoma. Then Montrell Washington, wide receiver out of Samford. And then Luke Wattenberg, center out of Washington. See, I went through all of those. That's how you know that other name is just craziness. Then the 6th round, I got Matt Henningsen, defensive tackle out of Wisconsin. And then in the 7th round, there's Fayon Hicks, cornerback out of Wisconsin. Boom. I'm not doing it. I'm not even trying it.
Boom. All right, well, this year, their 1st round pick was essentially Russell Wilson. That's who you can mark down for the 1st round. After trading away Von Miller, you're thinking they've got a need for edge. They got to add an edge. You got to add somebody across from Bradley Chubb because he can't do it by himself.
No,
you acquired Randy Gregory, much to the dismay of Cowboy fans.
No, it's okay. We're good with it now.
And then they added Nick Benito with their 1st selection, which came in the 2nd round. I'm not mad at it. It was a need. You have to have a rotation. Bradley Chubb is coming off an injury. Who knows with Randy Gregory what he could be facing? It shouldn't be any issues, but you can never have too few edge rushers, right?
That was corners.
And then that too. But for Denver, it's edge. After trading Noah Fant as part of the Russell Wilson trade, you're thinking Albert O was the main beneficiary of those tight end targets, or at least he should have been. But I think that's going to be changing.
So fast.
Yeah. It's going to be changing with the selection of Greg Dulcich, which I really like. He's got huge upside. You add Damari Mathis in the 4th round, their secondary, which I thought was a good move because you got to make sure you have some long-term pieces across from Pat Surtain because he can't do it all by himself. And after that is where I really start questioning their selections. Like, I like the first 3, and then after that, they added Luke Wattenberg at the end of the 5th. They actually traded up with Green Bay to do so, and that's fine, but it feels similar to the Jacksonville draft. You pass on O-line even though it's a need, and when you do address it, it's late, and it's a center. Then you draft 3 defensive linemen and 3 secondary people, and you only add 1 to your offensive line. They even drafted a kick returner before giving attention to their offensive line. Why?
I don't know how I feel about this draft. I like the Nick Benito pick. I like the Dulcich pick. I don't like the Mathis pick. I'm sorry, he's a slow corner. Not a fan. Like, he's very slow. The tackle out of Iowa, whose name I cannot pronounce. I actually do like him as a player. I just wish I know how to pronounce his name. And then those other picks, I mean, they filled out some areas. But you're right, they needed to address the offensive line at some point. But maybe this is the Russell Wilson effect. Russell Wilson comes to a team and is like, we don't need an offensive line. He'll just run around and figure things out.
He didn't play with an offensive line in Seattle. He doesn't need one now.
All right, your favorite pick, or my favorite pick. We start with me in this one. Oh, crap, there goes my ice. But while my ice is cooling my foot, I'm going to say Dulcich. I really like the pick. I really like the fit. I think Russell Wilson will enjoy him as a target.
All right, and before I get to my favorite pick, Damari Mathis ran a 4.3940.
Oh, was he the fast one?
So he was a faster one.
All right,
so maybe you'll like this a little bit more. Maybe.
I must have gotten confused with the other Pittsburgh guy there's another Pittsburgh guy who's like super slow. I forgot his name now. I thought it was Mathis. My bad.
All right, and then my favorite pick is also Greg Dulcich. A great replacement for Noah Fant. I think he's going to be a great addition to the offense that already has Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, maybe Jerry Jeudy. Solid running backs. Offensive line might be a little bit of a question mark, but you also trade down to get Dulcich. You're getting better value there. I liked it.
All right, my least favorite pick is going to be this Montreal Washington. My understanding is he is not diverse enough to be really a full-time receiver, so he is mainly just a kick returner. Why?
Yep, he is also my least favorite pick, and I'm not a fan of it primarily because he is a kick returner, right? They selected him before adding an offensive lineman. Could you get creative and manufacture touches for him on offense? Yeah, you could do that. But if not, you're using a draft pick and a roster spot on somebody who purely returns kicks. And you got to think Denver's hoping that he turns into a game changer like Devin Hester, because if not, he was a 5th round pick that you just spent in a kick returner.
This is true. All right, we're going to move on. Next draft. Let me get on my game again. We're going to go with the Chargers here. First round, pick number 17, they select Zion Johnson, offensive lineman out of Boston College. We'll see where they put him. I'm guessing it's going to be left guard. Then they don't have a 2nd round pick. Why don't they have a 2nd round pick?
Khalil Mack.
Yes, they traded for Khalil Mack from the Chicago Bears. Good job, Bears. In the third round, they selected J.T. Woods, safety out of Baylor. In the fourth round, a Cat Daddy special, Isaiah Spiller, running back out of Texas A&M. In the fifth round, they take Otito Obanati, defensive tackle, UCLA. Then in the sixth round, Jamari Sallier, offensive lineman out of Georgia. Then they get, and also in the sixth round, Jasur Taylor, DB out of Wake Forest. Then in the seventh round, they get, Dane Leonard, DB out of Mississippi. And then it's Xander Horvath, running back out of Purdue. Thoughts on this draft?
Even before the draft, they did a good job of attacking the offseason, which helped make their drafts less need-based. They traded for Khalil Mack. They signed J.C. Jackson. Their biggest need coming into the draft was probably the right side of their offensive line. Right guard, right tackle. They had Trevor Penning available for them when they picked in the first, but they selected Zion Johnson instead, which is a little bit surprising for me. Now, you know that I love some Zion Johnson, right? He's a guy I've been high on since hearing some interviews at the Senior Bowl, but I thought there would have been better interior offensive line talent available later as opposed to offensive tackle talent. So I'm a little bit surprised that they passed on Penning. But they did double down on the offensive line, selecting Jamari Sallier in the sixth round. But we're not sure what position he's going to be playing. I know for the Chargers, they're probably hoping he plays some tackle, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the interior.
Right.
Third round, they add J.T. Woods. And fifth round, they add the defensive tackle from UCLA. Solid depth pieces who can contribute on a rotation basis as rookies until they can lock down some starting jobs. So, not too bad. But sandwiched between those two picks, I want to knock them for having a running back for the third consecutive draft. But Spiller's talent was too good to pass up. He should quickly command running back 2 duties, because you're thinking Joshua Kelly, who they drafted last year, or 2019, Larry Roundtree, who they drafted in 20. They're not going to be really much competition for him. And they added 3 developmental players to round out their draft. They had Jasir Taylor in the 6th round. They had Leonard in the 7th. They had Horvath, who's a fullback, in the 7th. Now, none of these guys are expected to get regular reps, but they could make an impact on special teams as a rookie.
All right, so my thoughts here. Really like the Zion Johnson pick. I actually like it. I understand why going that way. You know, it could have been either which way, but I still really like the Zion Johnson pick. If anything, they could kick him out. But, I mean, if they think he's going to be a Pro Bowl left guard or Pro Bowl guard, that makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. Khalil Mack being part of this draft is a big thing. J.T. Woods I like as a player. I like Spiller. I think he's their future running back 1. You know, no offense to
Austin Eckler.
Austin Eckler. I see C.J. Spiller is going to be the full-time guy there eventually. You know, especially a guy like Austin Eckler, who's been injured in the past, who's a little bit smaller. Don't pay running backs. Like the defensive tackle from UCLA, he's been injured, but he's good paying. I think the Sallier pick is great value. All right, up next, favorite pick. Shoot.
For me, you already know this one. It's going to be Isaiah Spiller. 4th round. The Chargers got my RB1 in round 4. And it either means I know what I'm doing or
we'll see.
The league doesn't know what they're doing. But, you know, time will tell. It's definitely one of those, too. And I like the Isaiah Spiller selection, especially if they have concerns about Austin Eckler staying healthy for a full 17 games. He's a guy who could...
Someone else's RB1 before your RB1, just letting you know.
Anyways. Anyways, Isaiah Spiller is a guy who could eventually take over 3-down role when the time comes to move on from Austin Eckler. So,
All right.
yeah.
All right, my favorite pick is the Jamari Salyer. I thought it was great value. I think this guy actually could have a path to be playing on this offensive line, if not sooner than later than sooner. I don't know if that made sense. Probably didn't. But between the next 2 years, I can see him getting onto this roster, onto the starting lineup. All right, least favorite.
Least favorite, man, it's like safety is just on repeat for me. Just one safety going off the board. I don't think the value's there for him. So enter JT Woods.
I agree with you. It's not that I don't like the player. I just, in comparison with the other picks they had, that's the one pick which I think was a little bit of a reach.
Yep.
All right, next up, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. Oh, God, he's going to love this part of it. So, the Raiders did not have a first or second round pick. Well, why is that?
Because they gave those picks to the Green Bay Packers in return for Devontae Adams, and they gave him $28 million per year.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah, that's what happened.
Do you have any feelings about that?
The more information that comes out made it sound like he did not want to be in Green Bay. Even if he got paid, he did not want to be in Green Bay.
Some feelings about
So, if he didn't want to be there, it didn't matter how much money we gave him, because that money would all just go towards the guy who didn't want to be there.
Right there in your soul.
No. I've recovered from Devontae Adams, just like I've recovered from Jordan Love.
All right, there's that payback for that Randy Gregory comment.
Fair enough. Touche.
So in the third round, the Raiders select Dylan Parham, offensive guard out of Memphis. In the fourth round, they go Zamir White, running back out of Georgia. Also in the fourth round, Neil Farrell, defensive tackle out of LSU. In the fifth round, Matthew Butler, defensive tackle out of Tennessee. Then in the seventh round, Thayer Munford Jr., offensive tackle out of Ohio State. And also in the seventh round, is that a name? Britan Brown, running back UCLA. All right, so I would have loved this draft if it wasn't for the second running back in the seventh round. I don't think that's necessary, but I do like a lot of the other picks. Dylan Parham, steal, third round. Zamir White, great pick in the fourth round because Josh Jacobs is on his last legs if you look at him play. And they're probably not going to resign him. Matthew Butler I like. Thayer Mumford I like. I just don't like this dude with this weird name. Anyways, your thoughts on this draft?
After giving their first two picks to Green Bay, they weren't scheduled to select until 86. But even at that time, they traded back to 90. They drafted Dylan Parham, and that was a great selection. I really like that because not only is he a good player, but it also addresses a really big need for the team as far as offensive line.
Wow.
And really one thing that we see with this draft is two of their weaknesses were offensive line and interior defensive line. And they made sure to get some guys to fill those spots. Dylan Parham, he could play either guard spot. He could even play a little bit of center if you're in a pinch. Thayer Mumford was a great seventh round selection, multi-year starter as an offensive tackle at Ohio State, and he is a guy who could keep Alex Leatherwood on the inside because Alex Leatherwood didn't do too well on the outside last year. So you got those guys on the defensive line. I like the Matthew Butler pick more than I like the Neil Farrell one. Just because Neil Farrell is a big nose tackle. He's got the size. I think he's going to be more of a run stopper. But with all the changes and all the additions to AFC West this year, this is an arms race, literally. And that's where I think Butler is going to be a better value pick because he's going to get more snaps, more work in the rotation because of his ability to put pressure on the quarterback in those situations. So that's what I think.
All right, so I'm starting, and I'm going to give you the layup for the favorite pick because I'm going to go with Zeus. This guy is going to be their first, their future running back there. He's going to have more fantasy values. Oh, look at that. Wink, wink. Giving you guys a look into the future. So he's going to have more fantasy value than people realize. This guy is a beast, and the Raiders are going to enjoy having him punish other teams.
All right, for me, it's Dylan Parham in the third round. I like the player. I like the spot he was taken. I like that the Raiders were able to trade back and get him. I like how he fills a need for them, and he was one of the best players on the board at that time. And I expect him to be a starter in year one.
All right, least favorite pick. For me, you know what it is. Britton Brown. I'm sorry. You don't need to take two running backs in the draft. You probably could have got this guy undrafted. Who was looking at him at 250?
I know, it's hard. Just like our previous episode we had, it's hard not to like a 7th round player selection just because of the expectations for them, that they're flyers, they're filling out roster spots. But in the Raiders' defense, I think before they made any of their selections, they declined the 5th-year option for Cleveland Farrell, Jonathan Abrams, and Josh Jacobs. So essentially, when their contracts are done, I don't expect the Raiders to re-sign any of them because they're under an old regime. But it is Britton Brown. It's the second running back they selected in this draft. And I'm a little surprised that he was drafted at all.
This year, like if they would select a running back next year, would make more sense. With if Jacobs is being ceremonially shown the door.
And they still have Kenyon Drake on the roster
they do
too.
Have Kenyon Drake.
So, yeah.
All right. All right. So let's rank these. All right. Starting with your number one. Who is your number one draft out of this division?
Number one is going to be Kansas City. I think the selections they made, the players they added, especially the early picks, will be able to contribute early, make differences. And the later guys, it's not like they're just roster fillers. The later guys, I think, have more potential than most other drafts aside from Baltimore in my memory right now. I think those players have huge potential where if they don't play as much this season, they could next year, like Darian Kennard. Guy could end up being an absolute steal in this draft.
I completely agree with you. Kansas City knocked this draft out of the park, but they needed to. They needed to. The other teams are catching up, and they might have caught up. We'll find that out soon. I'll give my number two pick. My number two is actually the Los Angeles Chargers. I like a lot of what they did. I like their players. I like some of the value that they got. There's a lot to see here that will contribute day one.
Absolutely agree. As they took the safety early, but you know what? Safeties are coming off the board. What were they going to do? Wait another round and then you have no safeties available because all of them have been selected? They have guys who can contribute. They have what I want to believe is a perennial Pro Bowl offensive lineman with Zion Johnson, or even if I think they should have gone tackle, you really can't go wrong with Zion Johnson. And you have a long-term RB1 in Isaiah Spiller.
And you have to include Khalil Mack in this.
That's true. Khalil Mack gets included.
All right, next up, who's your third?
All right, let's see. Who is my number three? Why am I not finding it? Number three is going to be the Denver Broncos.
Ooh.
Yep. Overall, they had some good picks early. I felt that they could have given more attention to the offensive line. And you have to add in Russell Wilson. because franchise quarterback makes a difference, and it's something that they've been lacking since Peyton Manning.
All right, so I'm actually going a different direction. I'm going with the Las Vegas Raiders, because also you have to factor in Devontae Adams, and then the rest of their picks, a majority of them I think are home run picks. It is, with the exception of the running back at the end there. Now, no, I get the Russell Wilson talk with Denver, but the problem is I have major issues with Denver after the 4th round. Major issues. And even in the 4th round, Mathis, yes, great athlete, but what's he going to be like day one? Is he going to be day one starting across the way from Patrick Surtain II? I'm not so sure. So it's just like, and then like you said, the offensive line. So this is Russell Wilson coming into, an offense with great weapons, but is he running for his life again?
They could have addressed offensive line sooner, but we both agree that Denver and the Raiders were 3 and 4.
But let's be honest here. After the Chiefs, these other ones, it's literally the next 3 are like,
they could have gone any order.
What is the distance between them? It's not much.
Yeah. It's all very close, but the Raiders come in 4th because when you're looking at draft hall, the most important position in the game of football is quarterback, and Denver was able to get their quarterback as part of this draft haul. So that's why Denver's 3 for me. Las Vegas is 4. They had 6 selections, and those 6 selections went to 3 position groups. And 2 to offensive line, 2 to your interior defensive line, 2 to running back. You also got Devontae Adams.
Which all helps
Bucks.
The quarterback.
They had Hunter Renfrow. They had Darren Waller.
Exactly.
They already
helped their quarterback even more with offensive line, with a premium weapon who's going just to open up the entire offense to Hunter Renfrow. Good Lord, is he going to see some wonderful one-on-ones? You cannot tell me he won't.
No, he will. He will definitely take advantage of those.
Our next segment. Yeah. Let's rank these teams. And this is difficult. And what we're going to do for this one, for anticipation, we're going to start at 4.
For anticipation, we should have started at 1.
No, we're going to start at 4. And this is difficult for me, so I'm going to let you go first.
As if it's any easier for me, but here we go.
Ooh.
This is shaping up to be one of the most competitive divisions in a very long time. I have a feeling they're all just going to beat up on each other during the year, and it's going to be hard for any of them to really separate themselves. So I think standing wise, I think they're all going to be really close. But if I'm ranking who's going to be last in the division this year, I will probably go with Denver.
Man, this is difficult. I am going to go Las Vegas.
Don't worry, Las Vegas is my number 3.
Denver's my number 3.
I love how when it comes to how we rank them in order of drafts and how we're ranking them in order of division, they're at the bottom. They're interchangeable for us.
All right, number 2 for you.
Number 2, I'm going with the Chargers.
I am pulling a fast one. I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sorry, Patrick Mahomes, you guys show me you can play football again, and you guys show me you can play football without Tariq Hill. Without Tariq Hill. Show me you can play with him. Show me you can even play again. Did we just see a blueprint on how to beat this guy? Who's up? And then, of course, number 1 is the Kansas City Chiefs for you.
Kansas City for
the Chargers. I think Justin Herbert takes that next step. I think this defense with Khalil Mack in it now. Oh, Bosa,
Joey Bosa, yeah.
Khalil Mack.
And then you have J.C. Jackson, Asante Samuel, Derwin Jameson in the secondary. Yeah.
Woo. Woo. It's gonna be fun.
It'll be a fun division to watch this year.
And then this offensive line is gonna be that much better. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. All right, people. That's all she wrote.